Okay. Now look at your books on page 14. Here we are going to talk about, the guidelines. How can we write, the capitals? Talking about, the capitalization. Here we have some rules for writing, the capitals. We have some of them. We have more than these, let's say, sentences. Read the guidelines and rewrite the sentences using capitals. Number one, who can read? Number one. Read the point. Use capital letters when you begin a sentence. Good. Use capital letters when you begin a sentence. Good. Read the example.
Many people were shopping at the mall.
تعال هنا. Good. Many people were shopping at the mall. You realize here we have to start with a capital if you want to write, at the beginning of any sentence, you must start with a capital. Good. What about the second point? Read, Amr. Good. Okay, you realize that here, the names must start with the capitals, places, names of places, rivers, lakes, universities, places in the country, titles. Titles of books must be written in capitals. Here we have an example, Jeddah, Oman, the Nile, etc. London University must start with what? With capitals. Now what about number three? Ahmed Talat. Go ahead.
Yes.
Number three.
For the days of the week and months of the year, Tuesday, January.
Good. So with days and months, we have to use what? We have to start with capital letters like Tuesday, January, August, etc. Now here we are going to look at the sentences. Then we will do let's say the questions here. We have to look at the mistakes and try to correct them. Number one, read the first sentence.
Jack decided to fly to New York next Monday.
Good. Here, where should we write the capitals?
Jack.
Jack is the name, and New York start of New York.
And Monday.
Good. Monday is the name. Yeah. Number two. Page 14. Tawfiq.
Yes, mister.
Number two. Do this
Um,
again.
Okay. My brother has never been to Dubai.
Good. Here we have six. My.
Yes, my
Yes.
and Dubai.
Good. Here we have my is what? Must be start with the capitals because yes, underline the letter, just the letter, and a place. Yes, Dubai. Number three. Good. Riyadh, it is a city, a name of a city, and it starts with a sentence. And Saudi Arabia. So here we have Riyadh and Saudi Arabia. Number four, Siman. Good. Yes, and the Graham Bell, it is the name of a person. Graham Bell, yes. With the telephone. And this is what the beginning of a sentence. And Graham Bell. Yes, Ahmed Khalid. Ahmed Khalid.
Yes, yes.
Next.
Number 5.
Yes.
Africa is an amazing continent.
Good.
Africa, hey.
Africa. Africa is a amazing continent. Okay. Okay. Number 6.
We usually go shopping with people.
We good. Start with the capital and Thursday is a name. Good. So here we number we and Thursday. Just you can write the letter itself. No need to write these letters. Okay. Here. Tariq. Tariq. Number 7.
Some, a lot of people go away in August.
Good. A lot of people go away in August. A lot, because it's the beginning of a sentence, and August. Number 7. August. Number 8. يلا محمد.
Lake Huron in North America is one of the largest lakes of Alaska.
Lake Huron.
Starting with the
It is the name. Yes, it is the name of a lake.
yes, Lake Huron.
Lake Huron. Yes, and
North America.
North America. It is what continent. Yes. So lake must start with the capital and it. Huron. Yes. Huron. And North America. So this is about the capitalization. I think you know the pronoun I must be written in capital.
On the top. On the top.
Yes. No need. Just no. It's not okay. Now here we are going to move to the the text here. We have a paragraph about let's say the advantages of the internet. How the internet has changed the world. You know that if you compare between the past and nowadays, using say the constant internet, you will find that there is a big difference between now and the past. The uses of the internet has spread all over, and we get a lot of benefits of using what? The internet. Okay, now look at B. Who can read B here? Yes, say B.
People communicate nowadays, but we communicate with your friends.
Good. Now, if I ask you, how do you communicate with your friend? How do you communicate with your friend? Using what, the social network? Yes, good. Now, how did people, communicate with people, with each other in the past? Face to face, letters, calls, traditional telephones. But nowadays, according to to the evolution of the internet, we have a lot of ways that we can communicate with people using the network, social media, all the time. You know, under the social media, WhatsApp, Messenger, video calls, SMS. So no need to communicate with people, face to face. Okay, now we are going to listen. Here we are going to read the text and compare with your ideas. Underline new information. Listen.
Page 14. 10. Writing. How the Internet has changed the world. It all started in 1969 when Klein, one of Professor Kleinrock's students in LA, tried to log in remotely to a machine in Stanford. In 1990, Tim Berners-Lee and Robert DeLeo introduced the World Wide Web. About 26 years later, 16 million people were online and email was taking over. Today, there are almost 2 billion users. Email, instant messaging, and video calls connect people across the globe. Social networks allow people to communicate with a large number of friends, and information is accessible to everyone online. All you need to do is Google a few keywords and you get numerous sites and documents. E-learning has made it possible for people to attend courses online and obtain academic and professional qualifications.
Okay, listen again, then we will ask you to read and we will ask you some questions about, the paragraphs here. Listen.
Page 14. 10. Writing. How the Internet has changed the world. It all started in 1969 when Klein, one of Professor Kleinrock's students in LA, tried to log in remotely to a machine in Stanford. In 1990, Tim Berners-Lee and Robert DeLeo introduced the World Wide Web. About 26 years later, 16 million people were online and email was taking over. Today, there are almost 2 billion users. Email, instant messaging, and video calls connect people across the globe. Social networks allow people to communicate with a large number of friends, and information is accessible to everyone online. All you need to do is Google a few keywords and you get numerous sites and documents. E-learning has made it possible for people to attend courses online and obtain academic and professional qualifications.
Okay, now, when did the idea of the internet start? When did it start?
1969.
1969. Now, what happened at that time? What did Professor Kleinrock do? Mhm. Good. He tried to log in, to a machine in another place in Stanford. Now, what happened next in 1999? 1999, 30 years ago, what happened? Abdurrahman? Good. Here we have two scientists, good, introduce what? The internet nowadays, the World Wide Web. At that time, how many people did they use the internet? Good. At that time, 30 years ago, 16 million people used the internet. Like, what about now?
4.5 billion.
4.5 billion users.
More than half.
And I think more than this number. more than this number.
It's now only for.
Yes.
Most of the world.
All of them. You realize that here we couldn't live without internet. Everything depends on what? On the internet. Just, try to think about, the internet. You will find that internet has what? Has access in our life all the time. It's communications, all of the services that you use with the government, you have to use the internet.
Now we can serve them.
Good, very good. Okay, now look at the third paragraph. How do people connect with others? With emails, messages, video calls. In other words, the social media networks. You realize that the social networks allow people to communicate with a large number of people. Okay, now what about, the e-learning? What do you mean by e-learning?
It's online.
Yes, online learning, electronic airline, yes, online learning. You realize that it is, now it is a must to use the online learning, during, the pandemic this. Okay. Now we want to read. Who wants to read the first? Okay.
Can I read?
Yes, Ahmed. Ahmed Khan. Go ahead.
It all started in 1969 when Klein and Professor Glenn Rocks, students in LA, tried to log in remotely to a machine in Stanford. In 1990, Tim Berners-Lee and Robert Dahnio introduced the World Wide Web. About 26 years later, 16 million people were online, and email was taking over. Today, there are more than 4.5 billion users.
Good. Who can read again? Yes. Sliman, read the first paragraph.
It all started in 1969 when Klein, one of them, Professor Klein Ross, that I wrote remotely to a machine in Stanford.
خلاص. Good. What about the second paragraph? Who can read it? Yes.
In 1990, Tim Berners-Lee and Robert Dahnio introduced the World Wide Web. About 26 years later, 16 million people were online and email was taken over. Today, there are more than 4.5 billion.
Good. The last paragraph. Safe.
Email is being and being equals to next people across the globe, social networks allow people to communicate with a large number of people. All you need to do is Google a keyword that you get a numerous sites and documents. E-learning has made it possible for people to attend courses online and obtain academic and
Good. Okay. Yes. Now, what do we mean by numerous sites? Numerous. Yes, a lot. Many, or yes. Obtain. To get, to gain something. Yes, to get. Good. Accessible. Yes, to get, permission for. Yes, access. Instant. Immediate. Good. It is what? It is an adjective. Instant, immediate. Good. Okay, now what are we going to do? Look at exercise C. We are going to read the text again and make notes in the chart about, the important facts and, the changes the internet has brought about. Here we have fact that, caused, or initiated change. talking about, the advantages, disadvantages, situation in the past, the way things were. Here, talking about the major change, communication, education, information. In these three fields, the field of communication, education, information. Now, what about the first one? About, the communication. What was the fact that, caused the initiated change? Good. Good. In 1969, okay, here, Professor, Kleinrock, students, they looked into remotely what place to a machine in, Stanford.
What's it around?
You should write here. Just we want to write notes, okay? Not, full sentences. There's no space, to write sentences. Just read, write notes.
Go down.
Yes, we can.
Another Mr. President.
They will put one maybe this week. Okay, we can write, here. First one. 1969. What happened? Log in.
To a remote device.
Yes. The first one. Log in remotely. Yes, page 15. Log in. This is the first note. Either in 1990, what happened? There is no space, so you have to write. Yes, اللي هو الورد وايد ويب 1990. World Wide Web. Yes. Now, what about, the change or the major change in education? What happened nowadays? The change that happened, in education field.
Anyone can cross the notes or can access to the learning things.
What do we call it? E-learning. Good. Good. But here we are going to abbreviate the sentence. Just here, so the second, we write about e-learning. This is, the event which happened, the major change in education, e-learning. I realize that your colleagues are studying online. This is what we mean by e-learning. This is also one of the results of the internet e-learning. Like, what about, the third one about, the information? Now you can actually, good, very good. You can what? It is, accessible, to all, yes. You can access to all sites. Good. Accessible to all sites. Now here we are going to look at, the advantages and disadvantages for speech or learning. So check it. That's one. Then Okay. Now, what about, the advantages for, the communication?
People still meeting face to face.
Good.
The advantage.
Advantages.
Oh, advantage. Okay. That's right.
Be connected.
Communicate wherever.
Good. Be connected what? All the time. Be connected with the other people all the time. Connect, people. Be connected all the time. Oh, sorry. This is here. Be connected all. This is what the advantages for communication. Now, what about, the advantages for, the education, using the internet and education? Now you look, your colleagues are what? Are attending what? Courses online, yes?
You can access learning.
You can what access to the courses, anywhere, anytime.
Easier way to.
Good. Attend what? Good, very good. You are attending what? Courses online. This is one of, the advantages for, education. Getting what? Information. PDF,
So back to the thing.
Yes.
To make research reports.
Search, good. Surveys, getting, all kind, the kinds of information that you can, that you need in your studying. Now, what about, the, let us say, the advantages for the information field? Yes, you can access
No, search for anything you want, you can look, get some.
Yes, getting, the information you want. Accessing you can access into what? Many sites. Okay, now what about, the advantages? Using what? Yes, the disadvantages, yes. The disadvantages for communication. Yes, Dave?
Attention. By the way, communication. That they always
Yes,
so they didn't talk to each other.
face to face, yes. Or restricted, for, face to face, but communication. This is one of the most disadvantages about, the communication, that, it is restricted to communicate with others face to face. Restricts face to face, yes, face to face. Communication. Yes. Now, what about, the disadvantages for what? E-learning.
To understand as well as you understand.
Good, very good. You couldn't understand, the
This
communication. Yes, as well as, taking in the classes.
And you will
Maybe, getting false information.
this interaction.
Yes, this, maybe people will be lazy. They are online. Or not interactive as well as, the classes, not, interactive. Or no chance to meet, other students, no chance to meet, face to face. Face to face. Now, what about, the information? No chance. Chance. Now, what about, the disadvantages for, the information? Is the information always true? Which you get from the internet?
No, not basically.
So you may get what false information.
Next you
Good. You will not search by yourself, going to libraries or, looking at books. Yes, very good. So you are not going to think. So maybe just one advantage, getting getting, false information. Now, what about the last one? In the past, the way things were, how did they communicate in the past? Yes, face to face. Good. And they meet each other, or they used to meet each other, but face to face. They used to meet. Means I think that yes, yes, yes. Okay. Too long to contact with adults. You can say, madam, meeting each other face to face, this is what was in the past.
Yes.
About, the learning.
In classes.
Yes, in classes, face to face, physical,
It is like quite too long.
It's too long to contact with each other in classes.
Yes, that's.
Presence was, a must. Presence was a must. So students had to come out, attend, to school in classes. And now what about, the information here? Getting, the information was what? Costly. spending a lot of time to get, the information. Getting, the information in the past was costly and, spending a most interesting time. Good. And post.
And yes, you will talk about
Costly. If you have the money to get the information, you have to go to the library, you have to buy the books. But now, just open your laptop and, see this connection via the internet. Okay. Fine. The last one here, who can read? Yes, say.
If you want, I bet that the report about the changes. Make mention in the chat about the events and the impact that on your country.
Good,
What was the event? Impact one corona COVID-19.
good.
Impact two. Can you write about the?
What was the event? Maybe, about, the past, unification of Saudi Arabia, for example. Good, good. Yes,
Impact 390.
now here we have an example here in our lesson. Okay, I think. 1 minute. Yes.